Yeah, good morning. I had made a bit of an issue yesterday with regards to recording my step 4, I think, of the OOP project. What had happened is my music was playing through my headphones. I wasn't even aware that it was playing. So the actual recording video recorded all of the audio that was playing while I was teaching on the YouTube channel. Anyway, so I'm going to re-record this section. And this section is just literally on making the project a little bit more user-friendly, and we actually added a couple of classes to it, because originally we had the deck, and the deck is a self-contained class. It's what's called encapsulation. Maybe I should make sure I'm still not playing music somewhere. That would be not cool. Anyway, if I go through my audio channels here, it doesn't look like any audio is coming through, so it should be okay. Anyway, so what we're looking at is we have a deck here of cards, and this is what should be able to be used for any game where it needs with cards. We want to kind of make this as much as possible a self-sustained deck of cards that it can do everything that we need to do as far as a card is concerned. So we'll continue with this later. The problem that I identified in the last video, which is no longer there, is the fact that when we get random cards, it wouldn't remove them from the deck. It would literally, so for example, you could hand out very easily 2 aces of spades, or 3 or 4, potentially over time you could hand out more, so you're not limited to the deck that's there. Alright, so the next, so that is one thing, but I want to deal with that later. But now we wanted to make it a bit more complicated, because now we know we have a user player and we have a computer player, so we'll have multiple players. So I wanted to put it down a table. So look, this is a table where we are playing the cards on, and I removed from our GUI the deck of cards, and I now directly just referred it to the table, meaning that now I work with a table, and the table has a deck of cards, a player hand, and a computer hand, meaning that now we also have a class called hand, which will deal with the hand that that player has. So we identify components of our project. So in other words, what are the different components that actually make this card game? One would be you have your computer player, you have your human player. Later on you could have multiple human players, but you have a hand, and a hand would have a certain cards within it. You'd probably have maybe a username and stuff like that later, but for now we've just got hand with the cards and them cards. I created the default constructor to initialize. I just said the maximum hand would be a size 15. That was just because I could. Cards is equal to 0, and then allowed you to add cards to it and get the value of the cards. So in other words, get value would be actually get total value, meaning that all of the cards in that person's hand would get the value of that. With different games, we might need to get different values from there. Anyway, now on the table, I created my constructor, so I initialized. Remember, the purpose of a constructor is to initialize all the fields. So I initialized my deck, I initialized my player's hand, I initialized my computer hand. And when we start the game, I gave the player 2 cards. So I did this by saying player add card, deck of cards, get random card. And same thing with here, my player hand, I add cards, deck of cards, random cards, get random. So I'm literally just adding a card to the player's hand. So I created classes on there. I don't know how well I'm going to be able to do that with the drawing, but so basically we now have a table, and on the table we have a class called, so we have a table, and on the table we put a deck of cards. So we've got in our objects, our table has an instance of deck of cards, and it has an instance of the player hand and the computer hand. So you're basically trying to separate the things out into objects that are here, and you would code them by literally, like we created a card class, we created a deck class, we now create a hand and a table class. Now remember, your project would require its own entities, its own whatnot, but generally if we are doing a card game, you would need this kind of logic behind it. You would need a hand that is dealt out to the whoever. And if you have a multiplayer, if you have a 2-player game, you would have 2 human players, or if you have a three players, so forth, you would just create different hands that you could get inside there. So we would add our cards to our player and to our computer. Now the next thing is a hit, meaning that the user chose to hit, and you want to add a card to the hand. Now this is pretty much, unfortunately, I'm not going through it as much as I was when I was coding it, because I literally went through it, but you are welcome to look at I'm doing this on your guys' matric folder, so you're able to look at the code there anyway. You'll see in the GUI, when I press play, this is the level it's gotten to at the moment, is that when I go start game, I get a value of 17, gets a value of 14. My hit didn't work, I'm not sure why. And I think the reason why my hit didn't work is because I didn't update the. Okay, I did update get player value, so my hit wasn't working. Come in. So with my, are you feeling better today? Okay. So what we did is my player hand is not incrementing when I press hit, so we have to try trouble solve why it's not incrementing. Because if I start game, it's 13, and when I press hit, it doesn't change value. Now, sometimes there's an issue that it doesn't update the actual GUI field, but it's not doing that either. So our hit isn't running. So we need to try problem solve why our hit is not increasing the value. So hit should add card to the deck of cards. Add card to my player hand. My add cards num cards plus plus card. And it should be sending through the random card from my table deck of cards, get random card. Okay, so it is adding a value to there. Now on our player hand, let's look at how I'm getting the value of it. So get player value, get value. It's looping until our I is less than num cards. Okay, so something is going pear-shaped here. So if in doubt, print it out. So in this case, what I want to do is after I add cards, I'm just going to set value plus player hand dot get value. I'm also going to do yourself a favor. One thing which you should be doing is you should be coding your classes to be fully efficient. In other words, like I was a bit lazy and I didn't create my toString here for my hand, so I'm going to add there a toString for my hand because it does help with getting a string representation of what I want. And then remember, for a string, we'll create a blank string. We would loop through our array. And then we would add to our num cards the actual hand, so cards position I dot toString. So we're getting that value from it. Once we've done that, I want to put a backslash in there. We can also then, after we do the various things, we can actually print out what cards we've got, so we can take a look at what's happening. We haven't got the GUI structured yet. So then here I'd want to print out SL or return SL, so return a string representation of what is there. Okay, so now if we've got this, and now go down to my table, when we hit, I'm also going to value, I'm also going to do the same thing. I'm going to print out the hand of the player. Player hand. Sweet. Alright, so we've got that there, and you'll see it automatically came up with the idea of the toString to get the string representation of it. Now we can just see what's happening in the background when we press the buttons and stuff. Okay, so first we're going to start the game. Okay, so value of 7. When I hit, no, nothing's happening. So it looks like I just didn't even, that was a stupid error. It looks like I didn't actually even code the button to be associated with the method. I do that way too often. Okay, so hit player, and so just the fact that I didn't actually code the button to exist there, but now we can see when I go start game, get a value of 8 when I press hit, okay, it goes up now. And you'll see there that the hand is a 1 of spades, 7 of hearts, 12 of clubs. So that's 1, 8, 20. So that is the value of 20. Now, we also know, and we've picked up a couple of errors here so far. So I'm going to fix, the only thing I want to do in the rest of this video, I'm going to fix the 2 errors we have. The one error we have right now is the fact that the 12 of clubs in blackjack, there's no such thing as a 12. A 12 is associated in this case with a jack will be 11 and a queen will be 10. To my understanding of blackjack, or the rules of blackjack, is that a king, jack, queen, and all the rest count as a value of 10. I could be wrong on that, but so I think anything 10 is the maximum value. So what we can do is then we get the value directly from the get value of the card. So what we can do is we can work with our get value, and here actually state if value greater than 10, return 10, else return value. Technically, now here gets into a little bit of logic with this. When you return something in a method, it doesn't continue running. In other words, that else statement there was completely redundant, because what I mean by this is that if value is greater than 10, return 10, it's done. That method is complete. It does not continue executing that method. Meaning, so get value, it will return the value 10, and it will not continue to this. So that else is a little redundant, because you don't need to, it will return 10 there. So will not get to this stage. Whereas if this is false, it will do that. So a little bit of on that note. So that will prevent me from being able to get a 12 or anything along those lines. It will just only return 10 as being a maximum value of it. Okay, so our second problem was with our deck. Our deck of cards would be allowed to return more than one. And this is quite the interesting part of this video. It goes into a little bit of university stuff. And I do not expect you guys, this is just for a bit of added knowledge. Come in. Dylan. Alright, so this is just for a little bit of added knowledge. As I say, you'll only really get into this in university if you do take any programming in university. But the idea of recursion is the idea of calling a method ahead of it. So you're sort of basically making bubbles, if you will. So you're going up on the same method chain, and then eventually it will go down. In other words, now on this regard, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a if we've got an array of cards, I'm going to create a Boolean variable in my card. Now this part is not university stuff. The recursion part just now will be, and this is going to be handed out, meaning that this card is on the table, meaning that it has been handed. It is no longer available. So maybe I can even call it, so you can do one of one ways. You can call it available, and then as soon as it's not available, make it false. Or you can say on, not on deck. It's your way around of doing it, but it's true, false. It is one way or the other. So in my default constructor, I want to start by saying available is equal to true, meaning that it is available until otherwise said. Now when the user hands a card, so in other words, when a card is handed out, so your deck would be get random card. Here you've actually handed out this this individual card. So I'm going to change it a little bit now. I'm going to say card temp is equal to random card addition 0. So we've got the actual temp card. Now if open brackets temp dot, now remember, when you create fields, always create your setters and getters. I'm creating myself a little bit of hassle because I haven't created a getter and setter for my available. Now that I've done that, I go back to my deck, and now I can say if temp dot is available, then return temp. Okay, so I hope you guys understand that. Meaning that if it is available, I'm returning it. But now if it's not available, that is, this is where the trick comes into it. I can return and I can call the method again. Now this will work, meaning that it will continue choosing random cards until it finds a card that is available. And once it does that, it will then be able to return that card. Now this is a little bit bad coding, purely because there are 52 cards in the deck. And what we would need to do is we need to add a number called delt, meaning that we can't go over the number that we've got. So delt, to start off with, is equal to 0, semicolon. So now, every single time we deal a card, so in other words, we successfully return a card, we'll need to increment it. So now get random cards here, if it is available, we would have successfully returned a card, so then we would increment our delt. And what we can do then is say, surround this with the whole thing with an if statement, and say if else, and say if delt is equal to, we can't even just say greater than equal to, that's not really needed, but is greater than or equal to num cards, meaning 52 cards. So if all of them have been dealt out, that means that there is no more cards to deal out. So in which case I will then return null. So that's just to prevent the instance that all 52 cards have been handed out, that it would not repeat them. So now we're going to test our program to see if it works, but here I'm literally, if I get a random card and it is available, return it. If it's not available, run the get random card method again from inside it, and eventually it will just, once it does find a random card that hasn't been dealt, it will just stagger back down to whatever the original calling method was, and then whoop, and send it back. So it just literally calls on top of each other. Now you can have a never-ending, like you have an infinite loop, you can have an infinite recursion. This is a nice example of where recursion can be used. You could find other ways of doing this inside here. You could do while random card is available. You could do it with a while statement as well. Probably I should have done that a bit easier, but yeah, a while loop, I could just say while temp dot is not available, or not temp available. Keep on looping until you get a random card that is. Okay, so this whole fun thing I did right now, section here, would be the equivalent of doing // I'm just going to make this in a comment, so I don't want to do it twice. It's basically the equivalent of going while open brackets temp, while not temp dot is available. And then I could just literally just get a new random card and so forth inside here. And then I could just get random again, so do the whole temp card thing again. So that would be an alternative, a different solution, is I could just rerun this every single time, and I could work with it from there. So that would also be a way of solving it. Same thing, just different. And then while temp is not available, so while it's not available, and when it is available, you then return temp. Obviously, in this case, I haven't now taken into consideration the delt, but I mean, you guys can add that into yours. Okay, that's the end of this video. There was a bit of a rushed, well, not a rushed one, but it was not done with you guys like I did with the previous ones, because the music was in the background without us realizing it. But yeah, okay, enjoy your day.